What is the most underrated type in Pokemon? It's gotta be fairy types, right? You may not know this, but the second video I ever posted on this channel was a hardcore Nuzlocke with fairy types, and that was the first video that was actually successful, and it's probably the reason I'm still here over 3 years later. So in honor of my underrated heroes, today I'm gonna beat the entirety of Pokemon Violet using only shiny fairy types. And who could forget all these other rules I'm adding on top too to make things even harder. Yes, here I am once again torturing myself for your entertainment. Do these fairy types have more than just pretty looks? Let's find out. Starting off our journey, like always, we need to choose our starter. Now, none of these are fairy types, of course, and they're not shiny, so whatever I choose here will be replaced once I actually manage to catch a fairy type. With that in mind, I decided to go with Fuecoco because just look at his happy little face. How can I refuse that? You might as well be a fairy type with that little smile. But before we can just go out and catch what we need, there's a few things we need to get done first. Starting with you guys telling me which type you think is underrated. Let me know in the comments and maybe I'll do a challenge run with that type. But now we blast through the rest of the tutorial, and with that finished, we can actually catch our first fairy Pokemon and start this challenge for real. But this early in the game, our options are quite limited. We can't just travel out super far to find whichever Pokemon we want, so the one I decided to catch was Azurill. It's not the perfect choice, I know, but we can always catch more, better Pokemon later. Now I just need to spend a few hours looking for a shiny one. And oh boy, did this take a while. I knew they spawned here, but I still needed to look high and low for that green little blob. I mean, it doesn't help that I'm looking for something small and green in a field of grass. I probably ran past one without even seeing it. But it's okay because I never give up. And after a while of searching, I spotted it. And look at how adorable it is! After catching this cute little wrecking machine, I named her Gretel, and the run had officially begun. I spent some time trying to level Gretel up, but after a short while, I was interrupted by Nemona, who challenged us to another duel. And I got destroyed. My damaging moves are both water type, and against a grass type like Sprigatito, I stood no chance. I guess we're all tied up at 1-1 then, Nemona. I'll see you later. But seeing just how underpowered Gretel was right now, I started to worry about the first gym. So instead of rushing into it, I thought I'd catch another Pokemon to try to guarantee our victory. And as always, when shiny hunting, this took a ton more time, but I did eventually catch a shiny Tinkatink. And this one was just as hard to find as the Azurill. It didn't blend in or anything, but look at the difference between a normal Tinkatink and a shiny one. It's just the little gem and the hammer that's a different color. So it's pretty easy to miss. But anyway, we caught her and I named her Match Girl after the fairy tale of the same name. I think having this steel fairy type will help massively in the upcoming fights. Oh, and one more thing before we get into that, I started to do something called the Masuda method, which is where you increase your chances of hatching a shiny Pokemon by breeding them with a Pokemon from a different language of origin. But this takes a very long time, so while we wait, why don't you try to figure out what Pokemon we're planning on hatching from these eggs? The answer will become clear later in the video. Now that we had a couple fairy types with decent coverage, I spent a bit of time leveling them both up to level 15, and then it was time to take on our first gym leader. That, of course, is the bug gym leader, Katie. So I ran over to Cortando, got past the gym test with ease, and started my first officially sanctioned battle as a trainer. And our first foe? Nimble. I sent out precious little Gretel so I could use the super effective move Bounce, and this went perfectly. One hit and bang! Nimble was down. Out next was Tarantula, so I just used the same move, and yeah, down just as easy. And last but not least, we have Katie's ace, Teddiursa. Now, this one was the only one that proved a bit of a challenge, mostly due to the Terra transformation, but I had a plan. I lowered Teddiursa's attack as much as I could with Charm, then swapped out to Match Girl to just spam attacks. Match Girl in this form isn't very strong right now, so it took a while, but I just chipped away at it with Metal Claw. After about 6 Metal Claws, Teddiursa went down and we got our first gym badge. But even though we won, it was a pretty close fight, so we definitely need to get much stronger. And what better way to get stronger than by evolving our Pokemon? Fortunately, it didn't take very long at all, since Azurill only needs high friendship to evolve, and I'm so likable. So after increasing our friendship just a little bit, we now have a Meryl. This should make the next fight quite a bit easier. And that next fight is against Cloth, the Stony Cliff Titan. The first phase was as easy as predicted. I used Charm to lower the crab's attack damage, then switched to Match Girl for more Metal Claws. It took a lot of hits, but overall it was pretty easy. For the second phase, we had Arven join us in the battle, and this made things even easier. A few more attacks and the first Titan was defeated. Now, before we rushed ahead to take on the Grass Gym, Tinka-Tink definitely needed a stronger attack, so I gained a couple more levels and taught her Swords Dance. This should speed things up quite a bit. Hey, Brassius, can you come down from there? We got a battle, please. Now, in this fight, I realized just how effective the strategy I've been using is. That strategy, of course, is to debuff the enemy with Charm, then wear them down with Tinka-Tink's attacks. And yeah, it's really effective. I used Bounce to get past Petlil, then lowered Smallow's attack with Charm, and look at how little damage this does now. Literally 1 HP. And once I buff my own damage with Swords Dance, there's nothing Brassius can do to stop us. And the same goes for Sudowoodo. To add insult to injury, I don't even utilize my boosted attack to finish off Sudowoodo. I just smack it with a Draining Kiss, which is of course a special attack, and boom! That's another gym badge in the book. After this battle, Gretel was on the verge of level 18, so I fought one more wild Pokemon, and Meryl evolved into her final form, Azumarill. Now we have a little yellow ball of joy. No, it's not Pikachu. Stop thinking that. But anyway, up next is another Titan. It's the Open Sky Titan Bombardier. So let's see how our Charm strategy works out against it. Okay, his first attack did 30 damage, and after Charm he does 12, then 8, then 7. Yeah, this is gonna work just fine. After a few attacks, I swap to Match Girl, and the strategy works flawlessly. The first phase is over quickly, and the second phase is pretty much exactly the same. Another Titan down. So remember when I said I was hatching something special? Well, the time has finally come for our new shiny to hatch. Get your final predictions in now, because the new Pokemon joining our party is an Alolan Vulpix. And I know, there's not much difference, but trust me, that is in fact a shiny. And he's a male! Double rare! I named this little guy Kai after the main character in the Snow Queen, but didn't want to stop there. This guy needs to be even stronger. So I looked high and low for an Ice Stone to evolve Kai into a Ninetales. And look at how glorious he looks. Oh, that purple is perfect. Well, now that we've gotten an insane power-up, it's time to take on the first Team Star leader. The first, of course, being the Dark Star leader, Hakamo. And I did want to try beating Hakamo without using Kai, but unfortunately, I just couldn't do it. But once Kai did come out, the fight was a breeze. Take that, Hakamo! And I just want to take a second to revel in how strong we are at this point. It feels amazing. But it's not going to last long. It's the perfect way to feel as we head into maybe the most difficult fight in the game, the Electric Gym Leader Iono. So I traveled over to Levincia, beat Where's Clavel, and started the battle. First up, it's Wattrell versus Gretel, and you'll never guess what I did. I opened up the fight menu, had a good long think, and then chose Charm. Even with Wattrell being super effective against us, after using Charm a few times, his attacks were doing just 12 damage. That is an insane debuff. But this time, instead of switching to Match Girl, I went with Kai for the Ninetales sweep. I buffed my special attack with Nasty Plot, and then Wattrell, Bellibolt, Luxio, and Miss Magus all went down in a single hit. And that's while they barely did any damage to Kai. Who knew Fairy-type Pokemon were so strong? Well, I'll tell you who's about to find out. The next enemy in my path, the Fire Star leader, Mela. And for this, I thought I'd mix things up a bit and use a different strategy. I started by using Defense Curl instead of Charm. This was so I could use Rollout, which, if you don't know, doubles in power if you use Defense Curl first. Not to mention, it's a super effective move against Mela's fire types. And it does more damage the more times you use it in succession. It is giga effective. I used Rollout and okay, that wasn't a crazy amount of damage, but I used it again, and boom! That's more like it. Torkoal is down, and the rollout continues, and bang! The Starmobile is down in just one hit. Azrael, you are a beast! Alright, now that Mela is beat, I wanted to channel my inner Aaron and take down another Titan. And the next one on the list was the Lurking Steel Titan, Earthworm. This one is a little bit scary because Steel is super effective against Fairy, but we pushed our fear deep down and headed in against our most powerful foe yet. The first phase of the fight was pretty close, actually. My big worry was relying on the same moveset over and over, so instead I chose to start with Match Girl. I did still buff my attack with Swords Dance, but then I chose to attack with Rock Smash, and it did a reasonable amount of damage. That was until Earthworm used Iron Tail, which, destroyed me. I tried using Aqua Tail with Greta, but unfortunately I only managed to get one hit off before fainting. The fight was really close at this point as I threw up my last Pokemon Kai. Fortunately, a couple Ice Beams was enough to get us to the second phase. After healing up my party and tracking the worm down again, the second phase began. Luckily for us though, right before the fight started, rain came pouring down as if it was a gift from the gods. Thanks to the rain, all I really needed to win this battle was a Azumarill. Arvin tried his best to help, but it really wasn't needed. Aqua Tail did a huge amount of damage, and it only took us a couple of turns to take the win. We've been on quite the streak of just rolling up to a battle and destroying whoever we were facing, so I thought now would be a good time to take a quick break from the fights and catch ourselves another Pokemon. A decision I would soon regret because I forgot just how long it takes to catch one of these shiny things. Though, to be fair, that sweet, sweet dopamine hit you get from seeing a shiny after running in circles for hours is unmatched. And the shiny I was looking for this time was Ralts. At least this one stands out more than the others, a blue head in a field of grass. Nice. I chose to name this little fella Edward after the character in The Enchanted Prince, but I wasn't done yet. Ralts wouldn't make much of a difference in our battles at this point, so I decided to evolve it into a Kirlia, and then the game crashed. And I just really hoped that I had saved after catching the Ralts. Oh, thank God. Okay, let's try that again. There we go, Kirlia. But then I thought, what the heck? Why not just go straight to Gardevoir? So after grinding out some more wild Pokemon and reaching level 30, we now have Edward, the blue Gardevoir. So much aura, so much power. Let's try this new power out on Kofu, the water gym leader. Starting with Match Girl versus Veluza, after we both break the mold, I do the classic and start by using Swords Dance. Thanks to this buff, we actually have a super close battle with Veluza. My Brutal Swing and his Aqua Cutter do very similar damage, so the fight is mostly decided by who hits first. And fortunately, Match Girl is faster. So Veluza goes down and Wugtrio comes out. I also decide to swap to Gretel since Match Girl is in the red, and thus begins the most annoying part of this fight. Wugtrio can't do much damage to Gretel, but it can cause us to flinch, which we do. Over and over and over. Like, seriously, I tried to use Rollout, which would have given us such an easy win, but Gretel flinches twice and Edward flinches twice too. What is going on? Not being able to do anything as the Sandstorm slowly wears me down is so infuriating. Thankfully, the Sandstorm also hurts Wugtrio, and Kai is able to get the finishing attack off. Kofu's final Pokemon is Crabominable, but this ends up being a way easier matchup as Dazzling Gleam does some crazy damage. 2 hits later, and we have yet another gym badge. Alright, let's catch another Pokemon. I've had my eye on one Pokemon in particular that I never really use, but I think is super cool. And this fairy only run is the perfect excuse to finally use it. The Pokemon in question is, of course, Mimikyu. Thankfully, this one didn't take as long to find as some of the others. I mean, it still took a while, but at least it wasn't multiple days. I got pretty lucky when I found this desaturated boy and decided to name her Izzy. Now, of course, we need to test her out. The perfect test came in the form of the Poison Star leader Atticus. Now, Poison is super effective against fairy types, and this is usually a pretty tough fight even outside of that, so I was pretty worried here. But I spent a ton of time preparing and started off with the usual strategy of buffing myself for a few turns, and Skuntank just basically lets me do this while it tries to go for Sucker Punch over and over again, which of course, since we're not attacking, doesn't work. Once I'm done buffing, the Metal Claws come out and Skuntank goes down in 2. Next to fall is this tiny little Revavroom, then I swap to Gretel so I can use Aqua Tail, but this doesn't work out well at all. Turns out this Revavroom got hands. Okay, Match Girl, you're up again. I expected Tinkatuff to fall quite quickly here, but I actually got incredibly lucky, and Match Girl toughs out what would be a killing blow twice, then avoids an attack. If I was Atticus, I would be absolutely raging. Somehow, Match Girl wears down the Rev room and Atticus is forced to send out Muck. I wince as Muck shoots out a mud slap towards Match Girl, but she still lives? And then again? She must be the chosen one, dude. What is this plot armor, dude? After that impressive display and holding on much longer than she should have, Match Girl does eventually go down, and Izzy is left to finish off Muck. With Muck defeated, all Atticus has left is the Starmobile, which Edward and Kai team up to take down. Whew. If I hadn't put the time into finding Izzy before this fight, I probably would have lost there. Anyway, now it's time for the normal gym. And there's not much to say here, it was a pretty normal fight. I started by using Bulk Up with Izzy, and thanks to Disguise, Kamala just used Yawn over and over again, which doesn't work when the Disguise is still up. With Mimikyu massively buffed, there's not much Larry could do to stop us. Leech Life beat Kamala in 1, Dunsparce in 2, and Staraptor in another 2. All while Izzy healed up and took just 10 HP of damage total. Talk about a sweep. We were then challenged to a rematch by Nimona, and so I used a very similar tactic. Bulk up with, well, bulk up. Then shred through her Pokemon with Leech Life. Lycanroc went down easy, followed by Palmo, then Goomy, and finally Meowscarada. Once Nimona was defeated, again, I realized Tinkatuff was super close to evolving, so I battled a few wild Pokemon and got myself a Tinkaton. Our next battle was up in the mountain town of Montenevera. Rhyme invited us with open arms and the 2v2 battle began. First off, we had to get past Mimikyu and Banette. Since I'm not an AI, I actually know what moves will work on Mimikyu, so Kai and Gretel shouldn't have too much of a problem here. But first, I start by getting rid of Banette. One Dazzling Gleam and Aqua Tail is all it takes. Out next was Houndstone, which I almost beat straight away, but it used Phantom Force to avoid my attacks. With Houndstone temporarily invincible, I instead focused on Mimikyu, and one Ice Beam took it down with ease. Houndstone reappeared and almost beat Gretel, but she survived on 2 HP and got revenge on the dog with the Play Rough. Rhyme's last Pokemon was Toxtricity, and I still had all 5 of mine. It's not like I needed them though, because Toxtricity kept getting frozen after being hit with an Ice Beam, which, I mean, look at the way that it looks in that ice cube. That looks so uncomfortable. Anyway, one final hit from Match Girl and the Ghost Gym was done. We only have a couple gyms left now, but first, let's take on another Titan. That's right, our next battle is with the Quaking Earth Titan Iron Treads. And well, it's a ground type, and we have a water type. Yeah. Gretel destroys both phases, no problem. Alright, at this point it was time to get our final fairy Pokemon. But don't worry, I don't need to actually go out and find it because I've secretly been trying to hatch one this whole time. I've opened tons of eggs trying to get a shiny Eevee, and eventually I finally hatched one, which I named Eliza. Now, I know what you're thinking. Eevee isn't a fairy type, and that's true. But one of its evolutions is. So after teaching it baby doll eyes and leveling it up, we now have a shiny Sylveon. And that is a full party. So let's test it out on the Psychic Gym. Or at least let's prove how busted Mimikyu can be. Thanks to Disguise and the not-so-intelligent artificial intelligence in Pokemon, I'm able to use Bulk Up as many times as I want, while Farigiraf doesn't really do much. I do start taking damage eventually, so I'm forced to hit back, but at that point, I'm already buffed to the stars. Farigiraf's attacks barely do any damage, and Leech Life one-shots literally everything, as Pathra, Gardevoir, and Florges can do nothing to stop this train. So considering we had just steamrolled through Tulip's whole party with just one Pokemon, I think we're fine to go straight ahead to the final gym. That, of course, being the Ice Gym and its leader, Grusha. Now, my plan here was to go for another sweep, but this time with Edward. I wanted to buff with Calm Mind and then destroy Grusha's party with Mystical Fire. And it almost works. We get past Frostmoth, but then, unfortunately, we get outsped by Beartic and Edward faints. If we had higher speed, there is a very good chance that we one-shot everything here, but it's okay. A quick switch to Match Girl and we're back on track. After buffing with Swords Dance, Tinkaton's Gigaton Hammer is just as effective. Beartic gets squished, then Satitan, and then of course Altaria. And that's all 8 gym badges got. But before we rush into the Elite Four, there's a few more pests we have to deal with. Starting with another Team Star group, the Fairy Star. Fairy versus Fairy should be fairly interesting. Anyway, I start with Match Girl because Gigaton Hammer is an insanely powerful move that of course is super effective against fairy types. I buff my attack, but honestly, maybe I didn't need to. One Gigaton Hammer use and the enemy Azumarill is down. Gigaton Hammer does have a 1-turn cooldown, so every other turn I use Protect, and this just kind of worked flawlessly. Wigglytuff came out, so I just used Protect and then Gigaton Hammer, then Dock Spun, and I did the same thing. Then the Starmobile, and you guessed it, another one-shot. Honestly, to one-shot a Starmobile is pretty insane, especially the second to last one. That move is kinda busted. Now that we've asserted our fairy dominance, let's take on the final Titan. First, we have to beat Dondozo, the false Titan, but that's nothing Izzy and Kai can't handle. I use a super effective Wood Hammer and Dazzling Gleam until the big fish flees. Then I heal my Pokemon up and follow the false dragon to face the second phase. Izzy goes out first once again, and I basically use the same moves. Wood Hammer is super effective, why wouldn't I? And with Dondozo defeated, the true Dragon Titan reveals itself to actually be a Tatsugiri. And honestly, it's not much of a challenge. Fairy destroys dragon, so, you know. Arven's Greedent does get the final hit in, and now we're ready to face the final Team Star group. And unlucky for them, their last line of defense is the fighting type team, and yes, Fairy is also super effective against fighting types. I don't really like to spoil how a fight goes before its conclusion, but come on. I wasn't gonna lose this one. But for a bit of a change of pace, I decided to use Eliza. Annihilape's close combat didn't do much damage, obviously, and my Draining Kiss just blasted right through them. Passimian was the same, and Lucario, and then same for the Starmobile. Honestly, that was pretty satisfying, I'm not gonna lie. To fight something that my entire party was strong against is pretty fun. I can't deny it. You know? Anyway, now that we've tied up all the loose ends, we can finally advance into the big leagues. That's right, it's time to face the Elite Four. Oh, what the heck, Clavel? What are you doing here, dude? I thought you were Clive. Get out of the way, I don't want to... Fine, I'll fight you. I gotta be honest, after our recent monkey-only challenge in Pokemon Shield, Oranguru definitely scares me a little bit. He was an absolute beast in that video, but we gotta see what Gardevoir can do against him. As always, I start by buffing both my defense and offense with Calm Mind. Oranguru hits with a Foul Play, but it doesn't do that much damage, so we're good for now. After a few more turns of buffing, Oranguru tries to put us to sleep, but I planned ahead, and I knew this could happen, so I gave him a Chesto Berry, which wakes him up, and now that Edward is powered up from the Calm Mind, I go ahead and select Draining Kiss, and yeah. We did it. The fight is basically over. Oranguru goes down, then Houndoom and Poltergeist, and same with the rest of Clavel's party. It also helps a ton that Draining Kiss heals us, so we're basically fresh against every new Pokemon. This tactic has basically held us up through this whole run, so let's see if it works on Rika too. For this fight, I start with Kai, since ice moves will be super effective against Rika's team of ground types. I just need to make sure that Kai stays alive. First, I made it snow to buff my moves, then I used Aurora Veil to protect me from special attacks, and I started blasting. Oh my God, Camerupt just did so much damage. Oh, and Donphan survived the Ice Beam with Sturdy, what the heck? Okay, so Kai goes down, but we should still be okay, I think. We still have Tinkaton, who has some super powerful moves, and Dugtrio just beat her. The Elite Four is already putting up much more of a fight than I thought they would. Okay, let's try our OG, Gretel. There we go, one Aqua Tail and Dugtrio is down. Rika only has Clodsire left now, so we should be good. And after a couple more play roughs, boom, we did it, Rika is done. All right, Poppy, get in here, you're next. So, Poppy is a steel type trainer, which, you know, is the other super effective type against Fairy, but luckily for us, these Pokemon are more defensive oriented, so hopefully it shouldn't be too bad. But we'll find out. First off, we have to get past Caparaja. And since I'm a Pokemon genius that thinks 10 steps ahead of my opponents, I taught Gretel the fighting move Superpower. One hit from this and the elephant is retired. Next up is Magnezone, and this one is much more even. I hit with Aqua Tail and Superpower while Magnezone uses Discharge. Since the magnet is somehow faster than us and it does a ton of damage, Gretel ends up feigning. But that's not a problem because Magnezone is left on just 1 HP, so a quick play rough from Izzy and we're once again pulling ahead. Bronzong is next, so I spend a couple of turns bulking up, and after almost dying myself, I switch to Shadow Claw to dish out some serious damage. Corviknight also went down pretty quickly after just 2 Shadow Claws, and now Poppy is down to her last Pokemon. And this one was a bit of a pain. I tried to stick to using super effective moves, but Tinkaton is strong. Mimikyu goes down, and then Edward gets one shot, but thankfully I have a Tinkaton of my own, and Match Girl is so much better than Poppy's. Just look at her. Look at her. It's embarrassing. Regular Pokemon? Anyway, 2 hits later and Poppy is defeated. And now it's on to the third member, Larry. My strategy here was basically to annoy Larry as much as possible. Every time he tried to make it sunny, I would make it snow. So Solar Beam would take longer to charge up. Every chance I got, I buffed Kai, and after enough turns, I brought the damage. Ice Beam, go! One shot, easy. Then the same for Altaria, Staraptor, Oricorio, and Flamigo. Yep. That one was a lot easier than Poppy. And the same can be said for Hassel as well. Super Fang was pretty scary, but Hassel is a dragon tamer, and dragons are pretty weak to fairy types. So there was no world where I was losing this battle. I just buffed Edward with Calm Mind and then destroyed his entire party. And that's the Elite Four finished. Next up is the champion Geeta. As usual, Geeta throws out his Pathra, and I start with the buffs. I make it rain, then use Aqua Tail to take out Geeta's first Pokemon. Next out is Go-Goat, and I'm ready to swap out Gretel, but if I do that now, the Pokemon I swap to will take the hit. So instead, I chose to let Gretel faint so I could get a free switch. But Gretel doesn't give in that easily. She actually toughs out one last attack and returns with a superpower, and it's like free damage, man, that rules. After taking one more hit, I swap to Match Girl to deal with Go-Goat after buffing up, of course. I hit with Play Rough, and there we go. Avalugg and Veluza don't last long either, and they each fall to just one more attack. But Kingambit is where problems start to arise. I'm immediately hit with a massive crit and left in the red, and my attack missed. And that is just so unfair. Thankfully, my second attack went through and Kingambit falls. But Geeta's final Pokemon doesn't make things any easier. Once Glimmora is powered up, they use Earth Power and Match Girl is forced to come back. Luckily, Izzy still had Wood Hammer equipped, so a couple hits from that, and we take the W. We're technically the best trainer in Paldea now, but there's no time to celebrate. There's still a lot we need to deal with. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know the next person to challenge us is Arven. He wants to make sure we're ready to go to Area 0 with him, so we have a friendly little match. My plan here was to use Edward to sweep his whole team, and I really thought I could, but I forgot about one crucial thing. Arven's Greedent loves to paralyze. I defeated the squirrel easily enough, but Toadscruel got the better of me before I could heal. With Edward down, I swapped to Kai and did what I could. Ice Beam against Toadscruel to finish it off, then buff with Nasty Plot and Ice Beam some more. We got past Scovillain, Garganacl, and Cloyster, so now Arven was down to his last Pokemon. I shoot off one more Ice Beam and... whoa! That actually did a lot of damage. I guess I shouldn't be surprised after using Nasty Plot, but, you know, still kind of cool. We just need one more hit and... oh, ow! That Fire Fang almost took us out! Jesus! Woo! Thankfully though, Kai's faster than the dog, so one more Ice Beam and Mabostiff is done for. With Arven defeated, we have proved ourselves worthy of Area 0, but before we go, we need to quickly finish off Team Star for good by taking out their leader, Penny. Penny, of course, has a whole team of evolutions, so this might be a bit of a difficult fight. Having said that, none of them are super effective against Fairy, so actually, maybe not. My plan was to do what I failed to do against Arven, and that's buff the heck out of Edward. I use Calm Mind as many times as I can while Umbreon uses Baby Doll Eyes. Silly Umbreon. I don't even need normal attack damage, just special attack. You imbecile! Anyway, I finally got to the stage where I was happy and the special attacks began. One Draining Kiss for Umbreon, and it's dead. Flareon, you can have an Aura Sphere. Wait, what? It survived on 1 HP? Oh, God. And Flare Blades did so much damage. No. Oh, no. Okay, so Edward is down again. Let's try Eliza. Ah, more Baby Doll Eyes. Nice. Well, after using Calm Mind a bunch of times again, we were basically back where we were. Eliza uses Draining Kiss and yep, Vaporeon is done. Then Jolteon, then Leafeon, and the same goes for Sylveon. Oh, it just feels so good. Now there's one more teeny tiny issue to deal with before we go on to the final battle in the crater. And that is Nemona's nagging. Fine, I'll fight you one last time if you promise to leave me alone. All right, deal. Here we go, starting with Match Girl versus Lycanroc. We've been here before. We know how this matchup goes. I buff with Swords Dance and what? She got a crit right away? Oh, okay, Match Girl is down. Let's try Gretel. Aqua Tail, go! That's more like it. All right, Lycanroc faints, and now we face Pawmot. Pawmot charges up to use Double Shock, and Gretel toughed it out. We return with a Play Rough, and that's another Pokemon defeated. Next is Goodra, and by some miracle or some badly designed game mechanic, who knows, Gretel manages to tough out 2 more hits, all while on just 1 HP. And thanks to this, we get past Goodra and do Dunsparce. Honestly, this might be a little broken. Gretel finally goes down against Earthworm, but Edward is ready to get revenge. Now on her last Pokemon, Nemona seems pretty desperate as I still have 4 team members left. Edward manages to land a Moonblast, which does decent damage, but Meowscarada is faster and Edward falls. Not a problem though, I just send out Izzy, who takes the win with a Shadow Claw. And that's the rivalry over. Leave me alone forever, Nemona. Now it's time to head into Area 0 where we finish this once and for all. Nemona accompanies us as we meet up with Penny and Arven, and then we head inside as a team. We have to fight our way through the spooky and mysterious cave, but it's not long before we're face to face with AI Turo. And this is it. The final battle, starting with Gretel versus Iron Moth. Iron Moth has the higher speed, so I'm immediately hit with a Fiery Dance. Fortunately, it's not very effective at all thanks to my type advantage. I hit back with an Aqua Tail and boom! One shot! Done! Next is Iron Hands, and Play Rough does a ton of damage, but not quite enough. We're hit with the Thunder Punch, and our HP drops to 0. I decide to bring out Match Girl next and begin with the buffs. I can't spend too much time buffing though, since Iron Hands just does so much damage. But we don't even need to. Match Girl is a machine, and the damage she can put out is wild. One Play Rough and Iron Hands goes down. Iron Thorns is next, and I wish I could say he put up a good fight, but yeah, Gigaton Hammer does its thing. Next is Iron Jugulus, which was a scary one. We're hit with the Flamethrower instantly, and yeah, that's super effective, alright. If Play Rough didn't take it out in one hit, we would have been in some serious trouble there. Coming up to the last Pokemon now, we have Iron Bundle, and there he goes. Gigaton Hammer is absolutely broken. And for our final challenge, the last Pokemon we need to beat, it's Iron Valiant. I tried selecting Play Rough, but Iron Valiant was faster. We're hit with a Karate Chop from the heavens, and Match Girl goes down. The next Pokemon I send out is Kai, and this turns out to be a great choice. I start by using Aurora Veil to help us tank some attacks, but it's immediately broken by Brick Break. How does a Karate Chop break this light barrier? What? But that's fine because we don't even need it, as the next attack lands and we manage to tough it out. This lets us land an Ice Beam and almost defeat Iron Valiant. On the next turn, I'm ready to let Kai faint so we can get a free swap, but unbelievably, Kai, who is currently at 1 HP, is hit with a super effective Poison Jab and just thugs it out. Thanks to this weird stroke of fortune, we land one more Ice Beam and Iron Valiant is defeated. And that also means Turo is defeated, and that also means that the world is saved. And now, we let our Miraidon do its thing against evil Miraidon, and we have officially beaten Pokemon Violet using only Shiny Fairy Pokemon. Challenge complete. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you loved it. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time.